There's a kind of pain that does not hurt just quietly. It kind of follows you. It labels you and it convinces you that who you were at your worst is who you are forever. Today, we are talking about what happens after the fall, especially when that fall is public, humiliating, and deeply human, and why recovery is not just about sobriety, but about reclaiming your worth. Welcome to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life, where we explore real conversations about mental health, resilience, and growth in everyday life. Today, I'm joined by Beth McDonough, investigative journalist turned memoirist and the author of Standby. Beth has spent decades reporting some of the most intense stories imaginable and then found herself becoming a headline she never expected. So, it's going to be a very exciting conversation, folks, where we talk about recovery, resilience, and shame as well, because what it really takes to rebuild when everything collapses, right? That's hard to imagine. So, Beth, it's a pleasure to have you here on the show today, and I'm hoping that my listeners and me myself can take away a lot of things uh, about resilience and life in general.
Oh, well, number one, hello. I'm honored and humbled to be here. Thank you for having me. And resilience is everything, right? It's what helps to get us through this thing we call life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had this interesting thought. Sometime I believe that was a few months ago, or maybe about about 6 7 months ago. I was wondering, and I asked myself this question: that why does every fail usually end up being something that is revealed in the public, and all the success being kind of private, so no, it's like nobody's watching your success, right? But when you fail, it's like all the eyes are turned to you. So is that just a coincidence, or is that has that got something to do with the mindset, or is it something else?
I don't think it's coincidence. you know,
Yeah.
I do think it's mindset. It's kind of, like when you're out on the highway and you see a car wreck, there's a bunch of looky-loos, right?
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I don't think it's coincidence because people, when you see a car wreck or a train wreck, people have a hard time turning away from that. And it's kind of the shock and the wow that gets you in the beginning, that people want to see what's going on. And, but like anything, it's the car accident, the police take care of it, the ambulance, the people, and that starts to go away. Well, then you're still left with the person in the car accident and injury. Um,
Yeah.
in my job as a newscaster, and I worked all over the United States in Houston, Philadelphia, New York, Oklahoma City, Missouri, Minnesota, and I cover mass disaster. So 9/11, 35 W Bridge.
We can.
Okay, I apologize about that. But
Yeah.
I was a very public. My job was very public, right?
Right.
So, right, people can do their jobs, in an office at their desk, remotely working at home. But my particular job, because I was a newscaster and a reporter, put me out into the public domain, and all the things that come with that. And so, when you are arrested twice, like I was, and there are two mugshots, and those are everywhere. And and it becomes the worst day of your life becomes permanent online, and you have to
Yeah.
accept it.
and and I think you're the best person to ask you these kind of questions. And I mean, wow. So it's like being in that spotlight that you're trying to convey, right? And it's like all
Yes.
the eyes are turned to yourself, right? I think I've seen this, that as life moves forward, you realize that they don't care about you actually, right? They are watching you, or you feel like you are being watched because something bothers them, right? It's
Yes.
maybe the harassment, or it can be like the embarrassment that is visible in your face, right? And I think that really changes the perception of you not being the center of the universe, right? Not being so much conscious about yourself, right? I think that's where resilience begins or bonds in an individual. So, Beth, I'm curious about something. Like when people hear words like resilience or recovery, they often imagine strength as this clean and heroic process. So, what do you say? Like, what do people misunderstand the most about recovery?
I think one of the things that they misunderstand, there are two big things. When you hear resilience, and people used to say to me, whether I was in, inpatient treatment or aftercare, you're so strong. You're the strongest person I know. Well, strong is also not resilience. Strong happens because of things you've gone through in your life. Resilience is doing the next right thing, and that, helps to build your credibility about yourself. And so I think that was a big misnomer. People are like, you're strong, you're smart, can't you just quit? Well, if we could, we would, and there are way smarter people than me that, have addictive issues. And if we could outthink it or outsmart it or outwork it, we would. None of us wanted to grow up and be an addict and think, oh, let's blow up our lives. That would be a good time. Let's go spend some time in jail. That'll be super fun. And, and so that is a big misnomer about recovery. And then I think the other thing is, there's the early phase of recovery where people are very raw in the first 90 days, 3 months. But people tend to forget about the long middle. After you go through the first 90 days and you're like, okay, my cravings are starting to be managed. I'm starting to reconstruct my identity. I'm starting to get a plan for my life. And people do forget about the long middle of it gets very quiet. Things drop off,
Yeah.
people drop off. And it's you, yourself, and your thoughts, and so the long middle is also very, very difficult, and where people, can relapse, especially, over the holidays, and right now, here in the US anyway, we're in dry January, which is a great thing where we, challenge people to snooze the booze,
Yes.
if you will. Um, and something else I think that's really important for people to know as well is that no one's born with resilience. We build it, we get it, we earn it, we create it. So resilience is something that everyone can attain to get through situations in life.
Yeah, that is very bold indeed. Thanks for that, Beth. And what stands out here from this is that how recovery actually is really neat, right? It's not about that willpower or image. It is about facing what hurts without numbing or hiding anymore when the time comes. So if we stay that for a moment, Beth, right, beneath the public events, the career collapse, you name it, whatever, right? Whatever humiliating event you can think of. I mean, what are the some deeper patterns that were driving things for you?
Oh, sure, deeper patterns. Well, gosh. Ugh, I say cat has 9 lives and I think I have 20. Um, you know, there are so many things. There's whether it was, generational trauma. My biological father, when I was little, he abandoned us when I was a baby, and but he was very abusive to me.
Mm.
And he abandoned us when I was a baby. So it kind of started, then. And my parents had always, my mom remarried my stepdad, who I consider to be my dad, raised me and is a wonderful, wonderful man. We never had alcohol in our home, but my parents would always beg me, don't drink, don't drink, don't drink, don't get into drugs. It runs in the family. And I had two sisters that were addicts, hardcore drug addicts, and I always thought, do the opposite of them and I'll be just fine. And when I was younger, that did work. I looked at them and I'm like, God, they're always in trouble. That's not fun. But as an adult, and then you kind of grow into your own. And, going from that to at the time I got my first DUI, I was going through a divorce, which I wanted. I'd found out that my contract in Philadelphia with NBC News wasn't being renewed because Comcast was
Mm.
buying them, and,
Yeah.
managers like to bring in their own people. So I was going through a divorce. I was gonna lose my job. I had a home, so I was gonna have to sell it. I just recovered from thyroid cancer at that time. Then my mother got very deathly ill. And so I flew back to Oklahoma to take care of her. And while I was there and she passed away unexpectedly, my father had quadruple bypass, and I'm drawn to stories where people survive things. And that's why I like being a storyteller and being able to tell their stories. And who knew that I would be a survivor in my own right one day? So I nursed my dad back to health after the surgery. And then I'm like, okay, I got to go back to Minnesota. I'd gotten a job with Fox News in Minnesota. And, when I went back to that job, that's really when not only the trauma of what was going on in my life, which that happens in everybody's lives, but you start to absorb the trauma that you see and cover every day, and those two, one on top of the other, that's a lot for anybody to handle. And I didn't give myself the space to grieve any of the loss that I went through because just being a reporter, we power through. You power on, keep going, keep powering through because your day at work, it's up to you and your crew every day. You're kind of against the world. And so you just learn to power through. And, um, but the thing about alcoholism and other addictions, it waits for you. If you don't address it, it's like grief. It sits around, it waits. It'll be there when you get there. And so you've got to either address it or it's a lifelong struggle. And it doesn't have to be. And, that's really the point of all of this. It just doesn't have to be. Recovery and sobriety isn't for everybody else, it's for all of us, and we can all do it.
Wow, I mean, that's a lot. Hearing those things from you, right? I mean, certainly you've been through a lot, and I actually find your job very exciting. I mean, because I think there are times where you look at them and, um, I mean, you can somehow relate to what that person might be going through, right?
Oh, for sure.
Because for sure you have gone through so many struggles in your own personal life. So, Beth, thank you for bringing this kind of honesty. But, I want to end this on a very practical note for everyone who's listening to this, because I
Mhm.
think, um, so for me, if you ask, resilience is, so I'll give you an analogy. So it's like an completely elastic ball, right? An elastic ball that can literally bounce off any wall, right? It's that ability to bounce back no matter what that surface is. Now it could be a marble, it could be, a kind of a sponge that doesn't let the ball bounce off. So whatever that scenario is, it is that capacity to bounce back to that initial position and beyond,
And
right?
beyond bounce back, not just bounce back, but bounce back better.
Yeah, bounce back better. That's what I meant by that. So the question really on what I'm trying to end this at is, where does someone start where when everything at in their lives at some point is has gone wrong, or they're kind of rebuilding themselves, which again they find it very overwhelming. So what is that one small but honest mindset tip, or whatever you like to name it, do you think would actually help them move forward in their lives?
Something that sticks with me is don't waste your suffering. All of this, was you went through all of this for a reason. And it's supposed to make you a better person. The destruction certainly, made me a better person because I lost, my job, my home, my money, any financial stability, friends, family, um, my identity, my reputation, credibility. And so what I say to people and, getting 2 DUIs and getting arrested spared me from a far greater tragedy, which I'm grateful for. No one was hurt, because of my drinking, thank goodness. Physically hurt anyway. But don't waste your suffering. You're going through all of this, and just for a reason, and none of us asked for it. It's not on anybody's wish list, but okay, this happened to you, so don't waste your suffering. And remember everything you learn along the way. Take from other people what works for you, because different things work for different people in recovery. Just like with cancer, chemo doesn't work for everyone. And so, take from myself, my book, my experiences, what would resonate and work for you. And here I am sitting here with you 17 years later. So some things worked because I'm still sober, and so I want to be able to show people whatever scars and hardships that I went through, you know, if it can help pull someone through across the bridge and through their dark tunnel, well then let's do this. Don't waste the suffering. Let's put this to good use. And every day is another day that people can grow from what they go through.
Brilliant, brilliant. And guys, for someone who's listening to this and who feels defined by a mistake or a relapse or a public fall, this is it. This is that key takeaway from this episode. Don't literally waste your suffering because it happened for a reason, right?
It happens
And
for a reason, and you need to take the lessons from that and then share it with others. And that's the point of all of this.
do your part.
Do your part, pay it forward.
Yeah,
Because we're all in it together. We're all on this earth together.
absolutely, absolutely. And also seek help from others because I believe there is no such issue on this planet that you have alone gone through. I mean, somebody must have gone through that before, right? And there are so many books written about so many different things, right?
Yes.
It's just about seeking help from others and as well as giving that lesson to others so that they can, you know, take away from that. So thank you so much, Beth.
And if
For
I
this
could add
question. Yeah.
something,
Yeah,
to that is, people have setbacks. And if you slip up, don't give up. Just learn to reframe that setback as, people, and I've been there, I've had one relapse where you beat yourself up pretty good after that. But to realize that, you can turn that around, and asking for help does not diminish your strength. And I used to be afraid of that. Asking for help amplifies all the resources and the people, because people will help people who help themselves. And,
absolutely.
and that's just, yeah, that matters very much. And I also think if people reframe setbacks as opportunities for growth,
Mm.
we all make mistakes. Like, okay, sit back, look at it. What can we learn and glean from that? And then, the old phrase, what you don't change, you choose. So, it's time to make some change, and let's go from shame to shine now.
Love that message towards the end again. But that I believe comes from sheer resilience. That you were able to add so much honesty to that, and yeah, I mean on a personal level, I totally 100% relate to that, and I believe the listeners who are listening to this right now would also be taking away so many key insights from this conversation. So, before I mean we wrap this off, would love to ask you, where can listeners learn more about you and your work?
Yeah, thank you for giving me the space to share that. So you can see a copy of my book cover right behind me called Standby, which has my mugshot on there, alongside a news headshot, which just kind of shows people, the two parts of someone's personality. And so I have an author website, www.bethmcdmedia.com. And so you can go there and order the first of two books. Standby is out now, and it's also on Kindle and Barnes and Noble and Amazon. My second book, Still Standing, and building a coaching business and a podcast business, and a speaking business around that, is called Still Standing, and that will be out later this year. And maybe, we can circle back and chat with each other then, because Standby kind of goes into great detail about my fall, because people like the train wreck.
Mm.
And the second book, Still Standing, takes people through my rise and how I don't just bounce back, but I bounce back better. And I show them how to do that.
You are a great storyteller, Beth. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, thank you for sharing your website and the details about your book as well. So definitely, folks, I'll include the details in the show notes for you, so you can check out the website as well as the book or the memoir anytime. And with that, we're at today's minute mark on Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. So for everyone who tuned in today to this very grounded conversation, I hope that this conversation actually resonated with you. And if it did, or maybe part of the conversation did, I want you to take a moment to reflect on where you might be carrying that shame that no longer needs to serve you anymore. All right, folks, share this episode with someone who might need encouragement today. And remember that your story is not over yet. Healing is still possible. All right, I'll see you in the next one.